Tyler was just a regular 15-year-old boy with big dreams. He had always admired the stylish clothes he saw in magazines, but he and his mother barely had enough money for essentials. One afternoon, as he walked past an upscale clothing store, he paused in front of the glass window, mesmerized by a sleek leather jacket displayed on a mannequin. It was the kind of jacket he had always dreamed of wearing. Gathering his courage, Tyler took a deep breath and stepped inside. The store was filled with elegant displays, and the air smelled of expensive cologne. He felt out of place in his worn-out sneakers and faded hoodie, but he ignored the stares and focused on his goal. He wanted to at least try on the jacket, to feel what it was like to wear something luxurious. As he approached the display, his fingers traced the smooth leather. The sensation made him smile. He imagined himself walking confidently down the street, no longer the boy who had to settle for hand-me-downs. But before he could lift the jacket off the rack, a sharp voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, but are you lost?" A store clerk, dressed in a sharp black suit, raised an eyebrow at him. The tone in his voice made it clear. Tyler didn't belong here. Tyler hesitated for a second. The clerk's cold eyes scanned him from head to toe. His lips curled in disapproval. Around the store, customers glanced at him, some whispering among themselves. He felt a lump form in his throat, but he refused to back down. He had the right to be there, just like anyone else. "I was just looking at this jacket," Tyler said, trying to sound confident. He reached out again, but before he could touch the fabric, the clerk stepped in front of him, blocking his way. "This is a high-end store," the clerk said, voice dripping with condescension. "Our products are expensive." His eyes flickered to Tyler's faded hoodie and worn-out sneakers. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable elsewhere." Tyler clenched his fists. He could feel the heat rising to his face. Why did people always judge him based on his clothes? He had worked hard all summer doing odd jobs, saving every dollar to buy something nice for himself. He wasn't looking for charity, just a chance to feel like he belonged. A couple near the counter chuckled. A well-dressed man in a tailored suit smirked as he whispered something to his wife. She covered her mouth, laughing softly. Tyler swallowed hard, his stomach twisting in discomfort. "I have money," he finally said, pulling out a neatly folded stack of bills from his pocket. It wasn't much, but it was enough for the jacket. He had counted every penny, making sure of it. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "Really?" he sneered, snatching the money from Tyler's hands. He flipped through the bills with exaggerated slowness, then sighed loudly. "Unfortunately, this isn't enough. Maybe try the discount store down the street." Tyler's heart sank. He knew exactly how much the jacket cost. The clerk was lying. He could feel the stares pressing down on him, the weight of judgment suffocating. But then, just as he was about to give up, a deep voice cut through the tension. "Is there a problem here?" The room fell silent. The voice was deep, authoritative, and carried a sense of weight that demanded attention. The store clerk immediately straightened his posture, his smug expression faltering. Tyler turned his head toward the source of the voice and saw a tall man in a dark navy suit approaching. His presence alone commanded respect. The man looked at Tyler first, his eyes scanning the boy's distressed expression. Then, he turned his gaze toward the clerk, his brow furrowing. "I asked if there was a problem here," he repeated, his voice calm but firm. The clerk cleared his throat and forced a smile. "Oh, No problem at all, sir. This young man was just confused about the pricing of our items. I was simply explaining that. I wasn't confused, Tyler interrupted, his voice stronger this time. I know exactly how much this jacket costs. I've been saving up for months. But he's trying to tell me I don't have enough. The man's gaze flickered to the money in the clerk's hand. He reached for the bills, counting them quickly, then turned back to Tyler. This is the exact price of that jacket, he confirmed, his expression unreadable. Tyler felt his heart pound in his chest. He had been right all along. The clerk had lied, trying to humiliate him in front of everyone. The man in the suit turned to the clerk, his face darkening. Is that true? The clerk stammered, his confident demeanor crumbling. Well, I must have miscalculated. You see, sometimes prices change and… No, the man cut him off, his voice cold now. You didn't miscalculate. You assumed this boy didn't belong here. You judged him by his appearance instead of treating him like any other customer. The room remained silent. Customers who had been watching now lowered their heads, suddenly uncomfortable. The couple that had laughed earlier shifted awkwardly. The energy in the room had changed. Tyler clenched his fists, a mix of anger and relief washing over him. Finally, someone had spoken up. Finally, someone had seen what was happening and hadn't just ignored it. But he still didn't understand. Who was this man? And why did his words carry so much authority? Tyler looked up at the man, confusion still lingering in his mind. Why was he standing up for him? No one had ever done that before. The clerk, now visibly nervous, tried to maintain his composure, but the authority in the man's voice had clearly shaken him. I didn't mean any harm, the clerk stuttered, his fake politeness barely masking his discomfort. I was just following store policy. We don't usually… Enough, the man interrupted. His voice was calm but carried undeniable authority. He turned back to Tyler and gave him a reassuring nod. Go ahead, try on the jacket. Tyler hesitated for a second before finally reaching for the leather jacket he had admired for so long. He slid his arms into the sleeves, feeling the smooth material against his skin. It fit perfectly. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't just some poor kid who didn't belong. He felt confident. The man smiled. It suits you well. Then, he turned to the store clerk, his expression hardening. I'll be taking this. The clerk blinked in confusion. Excuse me, sir? The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black credit card. He handed it over without hesitation. I'm buying the jacket. For him. Tyler's eyes widened. Wait, what? His mind was racing. This couldn't be real. I can pay for it. I saved up. The man placed a hand on his shoulder, silencing him gently. I know you did, he said with a small smile. But consider this a gift. The clerk took the card hesitantly, his hands trembling slightly. As he swiped it through the register, his eyes darted back to the man. It was clear that he had realized something big. He swallowed hard before finally asking, I'm sorry, sir, but are you Mr. Lancaster? The room went dead silent. Customers, clerks, even the manager who had just stepped out from the back all turned their heads toward the man. The name clearly meant something to them. Tyler frowned. Mr. Lancaster? The man sighed, shaking his head slightly, as if he preferred to avoid attention. Yes, he admitted. I own this store. A stunned silence filled the store. The clerk's face turned pale as he realized the gravity of his mistake. The other employees stood frozen, their expressions shifting from curiosity to outright fear. Even the well-dressed customers, who had laughed at Tyler earlier, now seemed uneasy. No one had expected that the man standing before them, the one defending a poor teenager, was actually the owner of the entire store. Tyler's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. "You own this place?" he asked, still trying to process it. Mr. Lancaster gave him a small nod, and several others like it. He turned back to the clerk, his expression now unreadable. "So tell me, is this how you treat people who walk into my store? By humiliating them and deciding who deserves respect based on their clothes?" The clerk stammered, searching for an excuse. I didn't know. I just assumed." "That was your first mistake." Mr. Lancaster cut him off. "You assumed. You judged someone without knowing their story." He gestured toward Tyler. "This young man walked in here with enough money to pay for what he wanted. He was polite. He wasn't causing trouble. And yet, you treated him as if he didn't belong." The store manager, who had been watching the entire exchange, stepped forward, his face tense. "Mr. Lancaster, I sincerely apologize for what happened. This is not how we train our staff." Tyler stood frozen, his mind spinning. His father? That couldn't be true, could it? His voice was barely a whisper. "But how? Why weren't you there?" Mr. Lancaster sighed, the weight of years of regret evident in his eyes. "I never wanted to leave you, son. Your mother and I, we had our struggles. I wasn't the man I needed to be back then. I thought I could build a better life for you if I left to chase success. But by the time I realized what truly mattered, I couldn't find you." Tyler's hands clenched into fists. "So you just gave up?" His voice cracked. "Do you know what Mom and I went through?" Pain flickered across Mr. Lancaster's face. "I know, and I'll never forgive myself for it. But I've spent years searching for you, hoping for a second chance." He took a deep breath. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm here now." Tyler looked into his father's eyes, searching for any sign of dishonesty. But all he saw was truth and regret. The anger in his chest battled with something else, something unexpected. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning.